You're listening to the Visionary Lifestyle Podcast, the show that's dedicated to raising consciousness and empowering you to activate your highest potential. I'm your host, Magda Freedom Rod. Today's guest is Tommy Rosen. Tommy is a yoga teacher and addiction recovery expert who has spent the last 2 decades immersed in recovery and wellness. He holds certifications in both Kundalini and Hatha Yoga and has 25 years of continuous recovery from drug addiction. Tommy is one of the pioneers in the field of yoga and recovery, assisting others to holistically transcend addictions of all kinds. Tommy is the founder of the Recovery 2.0 Global Community, the Recovery 2.0 Online Conference Series, and the Recovery 2.0 Group Coaching Program. He leads Recovery 2.0 retreats and workshops internationally and presents regularly at yoga conferences and festivals. Tommy's first book, Recovery 2.0 Move Beyond Addiction and Upgrade Your Life, was published by Hay House in 2014. Tommy and his wife, yoga teacher Kia Miller, live in California where they teach yoga and grow organic vegetables in their backyard. I met Tommy over 10 years ago when he was running a show called Eco Gift in Santa Monica, California, and I was running my Visionary Lifestyle boutique. We were fellow environmentalists that both moved progressively more and more into the yoga space. We recorded this interview outside in a garden on a windy day at the International Yoga Festival in Rishikesh, so expect to hear some nature sounds throughout the interview. Tommy's filling a much-needed niche in the world with his Recovery 2.0 offering. He has become an expert in helping people recover from various addictions through yoga. Tommy defines addiction as anything you continue doing despite its negative consequences in your life. In this interview, we talk about the 8 limbs of yoga, addiction and recovery, and the power of the truth and the importance of community. Tommy also has a podcast called the Recovery 2.0 Podcast, so make sure to check that out. You can find links to all of Tommy's programs and podcasts in the show notes. Enjoy. Tommy Rosen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Magda. It's a joy to be here.
I love that we're here in Rishikesh together at the International Yoga Festival.
It's a trip.
It's a trip. When I saw you were on the schedule, I was like, my peeps from LA are going to be there. This is so great.
Thank you.
You're teaching here, which is fantastic, and we actually go way back to us being fully immersed in yoga. I think you were running the Eco Gift Expo.
Yes.
Right?
Well, certainly pre-teaching.
Right.
Teaching yoga in the way that I'm teaching it now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was before that.
Right.
I had met my teacher already, so I was blooming.
Right.
And still holding on to some of the older ideas about what I was to do in my life.
Yeah.
And I think Eco Gift was a wonderful thing, but it was from a sort of an older part of me, I think, in some way.
I always thought of you as like my environmentalist friend because I had the Visionary Boutique at the time, which was all about eco products and things, and so your show was a great sourcing venue for me. So we were both kind of in the environmental conscious space, which I suppose we still are, right?
100%.
Once an environmentalist, always an environmentalist.
2 feet in.
Right, yeah, 2 feet in. Perfect. And then how did you evolve from that into teaching yoga?
Well, I had been studying and practicing yoga since 1991, and I had come to this emotional bottom in my life, is really the only way I could put it. And a physical bottom too, which manifested in my very, very bad, painful, debilitated back situation, lower back. I found my way to the door of a man named Guru Prem, who became my teacher. And he was a practitioner of Kundalini Yoga. And he was a practitioner of yoga in the bigger sense. And he taught me how to breathe. Really, for the first time, I've been practicing yoga all those years. I'd never really learned how to breathe correctly.
Interesting.
No one had actually shown me the art and science of it. Huh. And I walk into yoga classes now in the West and I see, people are not breathing correctly or they're not breathing well, and we're not using our breath in our life. The breath, I emphasize it because it was such a part of my healing my back and healing my emotional state and transforming. That was 2003. So by the time I met you, it was 2007. And so I was 4 years into this new version of life. I was seeing things differently. And I was really involved in a profound transformation around Kundalini Yoga and the breath and a broader perspective of yoga in general.
And so you started teaching then when?
Well, I'd been teaching in one way or another since I was a very young man. If you mean standing in front of a class of people to teach asana, I started to do that in 2009.
Okay.
I'd taken a number of Kundalini trainings, the 200-hour, of course, Aquarian teacher training, the level 1 that they offer. I'd taken some of their level 2 work. I had taken some of their level 3 work. I took another 200-hour Hatha training, Vinyasa training under Annie Carpenter and my wife, Kia Miller. And I came right out of that training and said, this is it, I'm teaching. I'm teaching this way. I'm bringing yoga and meditation into the lives of people, whoever will listen, whoever has the ear to hear and the eye to see.
Right.
I would like to present these teachings to, particularly people on a path of recovery from addiction.
Yeah, when did that focus come in? That wasn't there from the beginning, I guess, right?
Yes, it actually was.
Okay.
I also got sober in 1991.
Oh, okay. That long ago. I didn't realize it was that long ago.
I had the good fortune of plumbing the depths of my soul as a drug addict, and then coming out of that, surviving it, thank God, by the grace of God, literally.
Yeah.
And then growing as a person in those early years through the 12 steps, the 12-step path, lots of support from people in that path, very, very unbelievably transformative and wonderful for me. And then getting a foundation in recovery, and then from that foundation being able to jump off into these deeper practices. Yoga, meditation, all of the breath work that we spoke about a moment ago. And then looking more deeply at some of the ethical underpinnings of living well.
Which gets us into the 8 limbs.
The 8 limbs.
Let's go there for a minute. Let's go into the 8 limbs and what it means to you, how it works into your teaching and your practice, and how it can help people on their road to recovery.
I think I can speak for myself, and also I see generally, I think people thrive in the midst of structure. And in people like me, and most of the people that I encounter on a spiritual path or on a path of recovery, really fight it, really fight structure. There's almost this sort of recoiling from the idea of being confined in any kind of way. And structure at first appears to be a confinement of some kind, but it really isn't. It's actually within the structure, freedom comes. So somewhere like 2,300 years ago, an unbelievable intellect, an unbelievable sage named Patanjali looks out at the world of yoga, sees it being disseminated, and he sees it getting diluted in a variety of different traditions and ways, and he sees a lot of misunderstanding and confusion about yoga, just as we have today. And he decides to codify it. He's going to bring it all together, these pure teachings of yoga, the path which leads a human being from darkness to light, from unknowing to knowing, from addiction to recovery, to freedom, liberation. He's going to codify that pathway in a way that a teacher can relay it to a student by heart. And he creates the nearly biblical Yoga Sutras of Patanjali.
Right.
196 sayings, aphorisms that describe the path and lay out the 8 limbs of yoga, the philosophical piece of it, the ethical piece of it, the yamas and the niyamas, the physical piece of it, the asana practice,
Which is one of the 8 limbs.
Which is but one of the 8 limbs,
Right.
and probably the least spoken about in the Yoga Sutras.
Right.
There's only 3 sutras out of 196 that
Right.
are devoted to that. And then the breath work, the purpose of pranayama, what it does, why it's so important. And then going deeper, leading towards, of course, releasing the past, becoming fully present in pratyahara, this drawing in of the senses, and then moving into meditation, ultimately absorption, and then awakening.
Mm-hmm.
So these 8 limbs of classical yoga, as laid down a few millennia ago by Patanjali.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it informs all my teaching. It's a structure in which I think a person can thrive. And I think teachings really come to life through the structure.
Right. Yeah, I think it's really valuable for, the mission of this podcast is, it's visionary lifestyle. So it's yoga, it's meditation, it's conscious eating, it's all these tools that help us activate our highest potential so that we can deliver our gifts to the world. And yoga is the umbrella that everything falls under. And I really want to get people educated about the 8 limbs, because as you know very well, we're both from California. In the West, it's pretty much all about the 3rd limb. It's all about the asana. Yoga is turned into just a fitness practice.
Yes.
So I'm really interested in enlightening people about the other aspects of yoga, that are so critical on this path, and leading people to the true path of yoga. And this is my first trip to India, and it's so amazing being here and at this festival with all these teachers that are just really in the tradition of it. And doing so many interviews here with a lot of the traditional teachers is fantastic. So I love that you're a good bridge, because you're coming from the California climate, if you will, and mindset, and so you can be a good bridge for that east to west sort of teaching. So I really encourage people to check out your workshops and things as well. So,
thank you.
And I love that you're focused on recovery. It's like you've really narrowed in, you've really got a niche here, right, with your teaching. And after your class, I took your class by the Ghat the other day. I was sitting at lunch with a woman, and she was explaining how she came to this festival not knowing anything. She's not really been on a spiritual path. I don't even know how she ended up here. Somehow God got her here. But it was becoming clear through our conversation that she was really in the midst of a huge awakening. And she was blown away by your class. And she said, I really needed to hear that. And I said, hear what? She said, that we don't need the substances. She's like, I've just been drinking for no reason, just to keep people company. And I just realized I don't need that, and I'm not going to do that anymore. And just in that moment, I saw the power of your teachings, and I was so grateful that you were here and that she was here to receive that. And every day I've been checking in with her and seeing, and she's continuing to unfold, and it's so beautiful to witness. And I love that you're bringing the support of yoga to people who are having these struggles. I can only imagine from your perspective, sitting as the teacher and leading the workshops and just seeing the transformation that you're seeing in people. I mean, people are coming in with these major issues, right? And you're giving them this tool of yoga to help recover. What's that like for you?
Gratifying. Super gratifying. Every time I use the phrase, your teachings, to my teacher, he'd always remind me, not my teachings, my teacher. And I just have to reflect the same thing, that there is I will give myself credit for waking up each morning and doing a practice and staying in the game and doing whatever I needed to do any given day to stay sober. I'll give myself credit for that. I also recognize that all of the credit has to be given to the energy that underlies everything, and that's God. And were it not for my teacher, Guru Prem, it all came from him, or all came through him, to heal me. And then once you're healed, then you think, okay, I know I'm going to die. What would I do with my time? How will I pass my time? Here. I've had so much joy in my life. so much pain in my life, so much connection in my life, so much disconnection in my life. All of those things are like self-centered for me. Oh, I've had this, I've had that, I've done this, I've done that, I've succeeded, I've failed, blah, 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 blah. But in the transmission of words, either in spoken form or written form or video form, that change someone else's life, that's where the juice is for me. That's all I can say.
Juice.
It's the greatest,
Yeah.
it's the absolute most incredible feeling that you feel as if your life is worth something and contributing, and there's a purpose and there's a mission and there's a reason. And I can see the elegance of the design that has taken place that I had nothing to do with, that was given so that I could become an addict, so that I could heal from that, so that I could help others heal, so that I could move forward in whatever ways I can move forward, help someone else move forward. How do I feel about it? I mean, it's just beyond words. I'm beyond grateful.
You recognize the divinity in the whole timeline of it all,
Yes.
right? The necessity of each piece.
Yes, we'd say ek onkar. Ek onkar. So I see the divine in everything, manifesting even now.
Yeah.
As I sit across from a woman that I met 10 years ago in another, what seems like another lifetime,
Yeah.
and then certainly in another geography and in another time and space, and here we sit in Rishikesh, India, having this conversation.
Yeah. What a blessing.
Who could have planned that? Not us.
Not us. I love this moment. So for those on the path, and I'd love for this show to reach people who may be at that point of, in pain or in desperation and looking for, their own miracle or their own path of healing. And I know that you bring obviously a lot to the table in this. You have a podcast, right, that has already a lot of information that people can access immediately.
Yes.
To get some support.
Yes.
What's the name of the podcast?
The Recovery 2.0 Power Hour.
Okay, so people can search for that and
iTunes or anywhere else you'd find a podcast.
okay.
We have 20 episodes up right now, and I would say if a person were to listen to one of those episodes per week, or 2 per week if you desired, I feel you would be brought into an energy of recovery that would be useful. And I find that people on a path of recovery, or people on any spiritual path, the problem for us is amnesia. And the constant need to remind ourselves of the truth, because we forget it so easily. We forget that we're connected. We forget that there's no separation between us and God, between us and other people. We forget that there is a design, there is a reason for everything. These wonderful birds.
Welcome to India. We're sitting here in this little jungle section of the Parmarth Nikatan ashram, and we are surrounded by nature, tons of monkeys, and this is the loudest I've heard the birds being.
Yes.
They're joining us, that's nice.
So we have to remind ourselves all the time. So if you can bring a podcast into your life that's positive, spiritual in nature, something that can touch on the truth and remind you of the truth, it's going to be super helpful to you on your path of recovery. The disease of addiction is a disease of isolation. So anything we can do to come into community is going to be so helpful.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
And believe it
That's
or
how
not,
we stay reminded, right?
Exactly.
Surrounding ourselves by people who are on that path.
Exactly. So the people who put up conscious media, I think, are putting a positive ripple out into the world that really is affecting people all over. They'll never meet these people, but you're changing someone's life virtually. And I've come to believe in and to really appreciate the virtual environment and technology for these uses. Very positive use of this technology. So I'm all for it.
Right, me too. I'm glad we're here having this conversation. Let's go back to the breath. You talked about the breath being such a healing part of your journey, such a powerful part of your healing journey. What is it about the breath, or are there any particular exercises? I'm always wanting to point people in the direction of, simple tools they can immediately use, or just also in general, how you feel that breath is supportive specifically of recovery.
The breath, well, there's 5 uses for the breath. 2 of them most people are pretty aware of. The first is, on the inhale, we bring in oxygen, O2. In the yogic perspective, we'd say we bring in prana. Life force is carried on the inhale. And that's the animating force of the universe. Every single breath we take in the animating force of the universe. We know this because if we don't take the next breath in, all of a sudden we lose our animation, and we die.
Right.
So
no breath, no life.
No breath, no life. So it begins there. We bring in oxygen and prana. Second use of the breath is the exhale, to release what's unnecessary or what's no longer useful. Carbon dioxide, CO2. We release waste product. In the yogic perspective, we'd call that apana. So prana is to draw in life force, and apana is to eliminate that which we no longer use or need. So most of us are familiar with those first 2 uses of the breath. And the third use of the breath is obvious, but most of us don't consider it. I'm doing it right now. I couldn't do it if I didn't have the breath. Of course, I'm talking about speaking. The exhale carries our words. In the yogic perspective, we'd say, be mindful of your exhale. Be mindful of what your exhale carries. Be kind on your exhale, right? So all of us have used words at some point that have been hurtful to another human being. And we've also used words that have been helpful and loving to another human being. So right there, we can relate to the power of our words, therefore the power of our exhale. The exhale has tremendous power. And it's also the last thing we do on this planet, is we'll exhale. So the yogis pay a lot of attention to the exhale. And the fourth use of the breath is, of course, to use the breath to enter a meditative state. You need to use the breath to enter a meditative state. Kind of a requirement. And once you learn how to do that, you can not only enter a meditative state, but you can shift your emotional state at will. If you're angry, there are breaths to help you move through anger. If you are sad or lonely or low energy, there are breaths to raise your energy and help you through those emotions. So you start to learn how to regulate your emotional situation. It's pretty incredible. Think of how powerful that is.
Yeah.
The fifth use of the breath comes out of a teaching that I work with in Recovery 2.0 called the frequency of addiction. So people operate at a certain frequency, literally a vibration that each human being carries. And each human being carries a unique vibration, almost like a unique fingerprint that every one of us has. When we're stuck in addiction, we are in the frequency of addiction, a vibratory reality that attracts addictive thinking, addictive people, addictive situations into our life. In order to change that, we have to change the vibratory frequency by which we're operating. And the breath helps you to do that. That's the fifth purpose of the breath, is to move out of the frequency of addiction and into the frequency of love, frequency of God, frequency of recovery, frequency of health. So let's take a moment and hail the breath for all these incredible things that it does. Oh my God. 5 uses. If you could just learn all those 5 uses and to do them well, think how your life would change.
Right, such a powerful practice.
So right there, that's that's life-changing.
Right. So that's a big part, a big focus in it's conferences and workshops that you do, right? For Recovery 2.0, or what?
Yeah, we offer
what are
workshops.
The offerings? Yeah.
We offer trainings for people. We offer online conferences and long-form 8-week coaching programs online, where we coach people in recovery and we coach families of people in recovery. So we help them through whatever stage of recovery they're at. We basically have a intellectual, spiritual, physical, mental, emotional experience together over the course of 8 weeks, which is designed around all of the teachings of Recovery 2.0.
Fantastic. How many people have gone through the programs?
We've done 4 of those programs so far, and I guess we've probably had, close to 1,000 people graduate. Graduate's a weird word. We'll just say that they've completed the 8 weeks with me together.
Yeah. So they're virtual, so people can join from anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world.
So they have a start and an end date. It's not a do it on your own pace thing. It's a guided.
This is a do something together with people. Even though we're in a virtual environment, I lecture live every Monday night. We do live Q&A every Thursday night of the 8 weeks. There's love missions that people do. That's our word for homework assignment. So we have love missions, and we have practices, physical practices, yoga practices, and meditation practices that we do together over the 8 weeks. And lo and behold, even through the virtual environment, it is so profoundly impacting for people, transformative. It's really wonderful.
With the support of community. Yeah, I imagine for this program it is important to start together and go along together.
That's right.
This is not a do-it-yourself thing. This is a do-it-with community.
I think so.
Yeah.
We also have a lot of videos, and when our membership, we're launching a membership program where people can join our community and gain access to our library of teachings, gain access to just everything that we have to offer, from the library videos, coursework, different coaching programs, obviously discounts on all the retreats that we run around the world, all this kind of thing. So we're inviting people into a lifestyle that really is powerful, that works, and that can carry a person a long, long way on the path of healing and spirit and love and recovery.
What a gift to the world. And
thank you.
Yeah, and a gift to yourself, right? Because you just your heart gets filled with witnessing all these people.
I'm along for the ride.
Recover.
I'm being used.
Yes, you're opening yourself up to be used. You're being a channel for healing for others, which is so incredible.
May that be so.
So, yoga, how many, you're using all of the 8 limbs in your practice, in what you're teaching? I mean, is it all?
So when we talk about the 8 limbs, the 8th limb is Samadhi, liberation.
Right.
So one doesn't teach Samadhi.
Right.
That can be a result of the work that you do. I would say that is given only by the grace of God. But one has to work and be diligent and apply oneself, perhaps for a lifetime or many lifetimes, before something like that can be given to you. But it's available. Nonetheless, the joy and the healing is just simply being on the path. The destination is not necessarily Samadhi. The destination is simply to be on a path. That's the destination. So if you're on the path of discovery, as I call it, that's a beautiful thing, and that can be enough right there. That's your mission. What's your mission? Oh, I'm on the path of discovery. Wow, okay. What does that mean? Well, it means I'm discovering every day. That's a successful life. You don't need to get anywhere. That's a Western idea, I think. But that could be a human idea, where we get caught up in the idea of a destination. And then all of a sudden, we start to judge ourselves on how far we've gotten along the path toward that destination. And then things like guilt and shame and confusion enter the picture. And we feel those things so strongly that eventually we start looking outside of ourselves to try and fix the pain we're feeling. And now we're back on that treadmill of addiction once again.
And the people that you're that are coming to you, I imagine there's all kinds of addiction, right? I mean, we're not talking about just alcohol or just your drugs, right? I mean, all kinds of addiction.
Addiction, I'm looking at addiction as any behavior you do that you continue to do despite the fact that it brings negative consequences into your life. The physical ones, the ones we most are aware of in the world, well, drugs, of course, alcohol, food, massive problem there. People addictions, so relationship disorders, codependency, where do I end, where does another person begin, sex-related addictions, love-related addictions, money, all of the money addictions, gambling, shopping, overspending, constantly being in a state of debt, big problems, very painful, absolutely addictions. And then technology, you know, how we can use technology not to enhance our life, but to avoid our life.
Right.
That addiction, which is taking over the younger generation. It's very, very hard to watch, sad to watch, painful to watch.
Yeah, just in the 10 years I've known you, look at how much it's changed, right? We didn't have cell phones in our pockets when we met each other 10 years ago.
No.
You know?
Yeah, it's
incredible
crazy.
how quickly it's changing.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And then beyond those are the grosser addictions, but beyond those you get into what I call the 4 aggravations. Negative thinking, self-doubt, procrastination, resentment. Again, people will say, well, those aren't addictions, I don't crave those things. No, but they are behaviors that you continue to do despite the fact that they bring negative consequences into your life. Negative thinking will sap you of your energy. It will ruin a perfectly good day.
Of course.
Self-doubt drains you of your motivation, drains you of your energy, drains you of hope and possibility, pulls the rug out from underneath you, takes the wind out of your sails. Procrastination, which was a plague of my childhood, so difficult to break out of that cycle. You never get started because you fear you'll never finish, or you feel paralyzed or overwhelmed by what's in front of you, or you doubt yourself, and so that leads to procrastination. They're all interconnected, of course. And then resentment, attachment to the past. Somebody hurt me, someone did something to me, something happened to me, I can't let it go, I'm hanging on to it.
It's victim consciousness.
Victim consciousness. I don't know what to do about it. I want to let it go, but I don't know what to do about it. It's still in me. It's still stuck in the tissues of my body. I still think about it. It still bothers me, if you even have that awareness. So how can we not call these addictions? They all must be dealt with to be truly free. And that cannot be solved. That problem of addiction at that level that we're speaking about cannot be solved only on the level of mind.
Wishing it away.
Or even talking it away. Therapy is very important, I believe, and I think it is important to tell your story, but not to cement it into reality.
Not all day, every day.
Right. And not wearing it on your arm like a badge of courage. This is what I've been through.
Yeah.
Huh. If you only knew, you know.
Yeah. It's ego at that point. It's like too much of your identity.
Yeah, and it has to be transcended, and a new story has to be built. A story of recovery, a story of healing, of hope, of possibility, which of course is available to anybody on this path of discovery. But one has to move onto that path.
So let's talk about that. What's for somebody who might be listening to this, identifying with anything or everything that you're saying, you know, hearing themselves in what you're describing, recognizing themselves in that. What's the first step? Where do you recommend people start?
It depends on who you are, on what you've been doing, on the state of your body and mind. If we're talking about someone who's stuck in chronic addiction, especially to alcohol or hardcore drugs, that person is going to have to medically detoxify themselves first. before anything can really happen. Once that's done, or if you're talking about someone who hasn't been involved in that kind of chronic addiction, you'll have to change your behavior. Someone said to me, Tommy, how does change happen? That, by the way, is a profound question. Change happens only one way in this universe. It happens through change. That's it. If you want to change a behavior, you adopt a new behavior and you repeat it.
So you replace it. You replace it with a healthier habit.
Yes, you can only replace one habit for another. You can't just drop a habit. It doesn't work. So you make a shift. If the shift involves other people, connection, love, that's going to be the right direction. If the shift involves health, a form of physical practice that leads to a sense of well-being, that's going to be the right direction. Maybe changing your diet. Maybe getting into a new form of therapy. Maybe involving yourself in a 12-step program or any other form of recovery that could help you. But a change will have to be made. A change will have to be made. And then you repeat those behaviors one day at a time, each day, creating new neural pathways, and the possibility of recovery becomes manifest. So that's how change happens. Wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you've done, wherever you've been, bring yourself to this moment right now and make a decision to do something different. And then, if you're wise, you'll find a person or people to help you. Because I've never known anybody to recover from anything on their own.
You need that community support.
It's just simply a requirement. And so we must get over the ego illusion that we can somehow do this on our own. And the only reason we would ever want to do it alone is because we're too afraid to let someone else know what we've done, who we are. Because we think if anyone really, really knew what I was capable of, I could never be loved. They could never accept me. And so I am not going to make myself vulnerable. Let me try and do this, what appears to me to be the easier, softer way. I'll be alone, I'll fix myself, and then I'll come out to the world as this fixed version of myself. And what happens, of course, is that person, being immersed in ego as they are, falls flat on their face, relapses, goes even deeper into painful, destructive behavior, and they find themselves at the next level of desperation, which is certainly fine if that fuels ultimately their transformation.
Right, if they're not quite at rock bottom enough and they need to go a little farther down before they really reach out for help.
Yes. So rock bottom is a good thing to talk about. I'll just simply say, you've reached your bottom when you're willing to tell the truth. That's it. And you can reach your bottom right now from wherever you are. You do not need to go any deeper. This can be your bottom today, right here, right now. Have you had enough? Then have enough and make your decision and say, I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to tell the truth. I don't know the next move for me. Can someone help me?
Turn it around just by reaching your hand out and asking for help.
Absolutely. I actually don't know what to do. Can someone help me? Where can you find those people? You find them in 12-step rooms. You find guides, teachers, therapists. You keep your eyes open. Maybe you find them in yoga halls, meditation halls around the world. Maybe in Buddhist meditation centers. Maybe you find them in a church or a mosque or a synagogue or any other place where people gather to connect and to move forward in their life. That's the thing. Step onto that path and be patient, be diligent, be vulnerable, be humble, and everything will work out.
And not necessarily expecting that to be a path of roses, right? I mean, understanding that this can be a challenging path, the path to recovery. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Not necessarily, a cakewalk, right? But nonetheless the right direction.
The human condition is not a cakewalk. Period. we are going to die. But before
our bodies are going to
our bodies are going to die.
Yeah.
And before that happens, we're going to watch our friends and some family members die. We're going to watch people get sick. We're going to experience the pain and the suffering of the world that we're in today. You can't avoid it. You can try and you can pretend and you can act as if everything's okay. But while we're experiencing joy, we're also aware of people suffering. It's all got to be held all at once. This is challenging.
Yeah.
It's hard to be a human being. It's hard to make decisions. We're going to have successes in life, but we're also going to start business ventures and we're going to fail. And that's hard. We're going to lose loved ones who maybe choose to leave us. And that's hard. We're going to experience jealousy and envy and these other very challenging human emotions. To step onto a spiritual path does not mean you avoid or will miss those experiences. What it means is you'll have a more effective and more profound set of tools for being a human being, for experiencing all that there is to experience. You won't be avoiding it, but it won't affect you the way it would if you remained in an unconscious state.
Right.
The more aware you become, the more you're able to handle anything that comes down the pipe, the more you're able to be the eye of the hurricane, the more you're able to be of service, the more you can build your consciousness and ultimately recognize your oneness with all that is. And from that place, there's no loneliness, there's no fear, there's no need to get anywhere, there's no need to rush. You just get to be you fully.
Yeah.
And being you fully means you'll still have stressful moments, you'll still experience sadness, you'll still get off track now and then, because these are all parts of the human condition. So the spirituality where you say, I want to be happy all the time, I don't know about that spirituality. Haven't heard about that one.
Right. As you're talking, I'm thinking about even something as simple as, a third eye practice, third eye chakra practice, something that can get us into the higher perspective, seeing things from a higher perspective, so that we can zoom out, right? Because we tend to get into, like, if we look at our life as like, a pattern that has a piece of fabric that has an intricate pattern, and we're way in the middle of it, we can't see the big picture. But if we can zoom out from that and see and just know and trust that there's a big picture and that everything is unfolding in a divine way for our highest good, I think even just that simple of a practice can be helpful for people, so that when we get into a situation or we hit a wall, for lack of a better saying, that being able to zoom out and just trust and know that there is a master plan that we are a part of, and it's all divinely unfolding and perfect. Something as simple as that can be useful.
Absolutely. The good news about this idea of being on the path is the path, that no matter where you are on the path, the infinitesimal progress forward is gratifying, no matter where you are on the path. I'll just give you a physical analogy. Let's say I'm on a yoga mat and I want to bend forward and reach and touch my toes. I want to have that kind of flexibility in my body. Well, on a particular day, if I don't have that flexibility, there's nothing that I can do to create it in that moment. It's just a point of acceptance. Oh, I cannot do this today.
Right.
If I practice, my body opens, I'm invited into greater flexibility, and all of a sudden one day I touch my toes and it feels good. It feels like progress has been made. I feel a little more free in my body. It literally feels nice to be nicer to be in this body. That's an experience of joy. Wonderful. That is as legitimate and profound as a person in advanced yoga practice, taking their foot behind their head, and they're almost able to get it there,
Yeah.
And then one day, the foot just comes behind the head and they're able to lift their heart and remain in a calm breath in that posture. Mm-hmm. And there's a gratification there which is equal to the gratification of the beginner who's just beginning to touch their toes. Mm-hmm. So you see, it doesn't matter what the practice is, only that you're on the path.
Progress, not perfection.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
That's all. Mm-hmm. If you're in a pink cloud on day 15 of your recovery, how wonderful.
Yeah.
If 30 days later, you're now feeling like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? How wonderful.
Yeah.
You're at the next stage.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's all moving forward. Even sometimes when we might perceive that we might be taking a step back, right? As long as the intention is there to be on the path and to be willing to show up. I mean, don't you think showing up is such a huge piece here?
It's everything.
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole point. So this is a good moment to just speak about relapse for a moment and what that means.
Okay.
So relapse on the path of recovery or the path of spirituality, it looks like a return to a previously self-destructive behavior. Mm-hmm. And the commitment along the path to that point was, I'm not going to do this behavior anymore. And so sometimes a person will relapse. So let's say marijuana is the thing, and they have been 30 days off smoking marijuana, and on day 31, for some reason, they get transfixed mentally on the idea of smoking marijuana, and then it becomes a physical act, and they actually do smoke marijuana. And maybe they've been going to 12-step meetings, and each day they've raised their hand, I'm 1 day sober, I'm 2 days sober, I'm 10 days sober, I'm 30 days sober. And the next day at 31, they've gone back to this behavior, they've had an experience of it. So the next day, they think about having to return to a group of people who have known them to be continuously sober for this past 30 days or whatever it's been. And now on day 31, they took a step back and they had this experience returning to their self-destructive behavior. Mm-hmm. And then shame starts to enter the picture. They feel ashamed of themselves. I've gone back. Okay. So it's a good moment to speak about relapse, which appears to most people to be this stepping back into a self-destructive behavior that they've been able to avoid for whatever period of time. And the shame that goes along with that stepping back is unfortunate. I like to look at relapse when I speak to people who do relapse or who have relapsed many times. They feel so low in themselves. Wow, how have I done it? Why have I done this again? I knew that this was going to happen. I can't believe I and it's so painful. If you can get the person to look at it as more information, it's another experience that you've had. Don't make it a moral issue, like it's a bad thing or anything that this happened, but look at it as an explorer and a scientist. Look at it as a yogi. I've had more experience now with my drug of choice,
right,
my addiction of choice. How do I feel having done it?
There's value in the experience.
There will always be value in any experience unless it's couched in shame, which becomes a stuck energy. Mm-hmm. And now you can't move forward from that place. Mm-hmm. First, the shame will have to be unraveled. And then maybe, if you're able to be honest about it, you'll be able to move forward through it. So this is the danger of relapse, at least in the way that people look at it in our society, in 12-step society, and in many other societies, where we have to be kinder to ourselves and to each other. It's difficult to move forward. Spiritual growth is difficult. If a person falls back or steps back, we really need to surround them with love, help them to understand where it came from, what can be learned from it, and then move forward and drop it, mm-hmm, and not be stuck in that energy anymore. It's so important. And of course, not everybody relapses. Mm-hmm. Some people are able to stay on the path for a long, long, long time.
I imagine there's so many variables.
So many variables.
Mm-hmm. And I can see when you talk about energy getting stuck, and I can imagine that scenario of someone being wrapped up in shame for relapsing, and I can see how the yoga practice and the breath practice could be so useful in unsticking that energy and helping people move through it, literally breathe through it.
The psychological process is important to have another person relate back to you what you're experiencing, to see your patterns, help you to see your patterns and what you're going through. The yoga and the breath work is critical for releasing the stuck emotional energy in the body, stretching the tissues of the body, getting blood and prana into different areas of the body to continually remain in a detoxified, purified state. Otherwise, these negative energies build up over time. We find ourselves resentful, we find ourselves stuck, we find ourselves diseased from it. And so the yoga really is just a way to begin fresh each day, truly fresh. It's really cool. You know, it's great.
Yoga, the incredible healer.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tommy, so much for sharing your gifts and you know, using your journey as a force to, you know, help others. What's the best way for people to find out more about you and get involved with your programs if they're feeling the call to what you're offering?
Two things. You could come to my website, tommyrosen.com. You can also Google Recovery 2.0. And if you Google Recovery 2.0, you'll be brought into our universe of offerings and understandings and lots of hopeful, powerful things that can improve your life and help you move forward to whatever your next step might be.
Thank you so much. So grateful for you and your time today.
Satnam.
Namaste.
Love. Namaste.
Thanks so much for answering the call to be here today. I'm so glad you're part of our tribe of activated rainbow warriors. If you found the show in any way empowering or inspiring, I would be so grateful if you would share the show on social media or with friends and family that you think would benefit from these conversations. And also, rate and review the show in iTunes. This is really the very best way to help support the show and help us get noticed by others who are looking for the sort of content that we're sharing. Now notice there are no outside ads playing here. That's because the show is supported by you, the listener. You can become a patron of the show with a small monthly donation by checking out the perks on our Patreon page at patreon.com/visionary lifestyle and signing up there. There's also a one-time donation button on the podcast page of the website if that suits you better. And just so you know, your donations help to cover the necessary out-of-pocket monthly expenses to produce the show and will also help us grow so we can inspire and educate even more people. And hey tribe, I'd love to hear from you. Visit me at visionary-lifestyle.com and please tell me your comments and questions. I really look forward to connecting with you. I love you. Namaste.